I don't know about y'all, but I could do with a little rewind, a little look back, a little nostalgia right about now. And I can always go for some quality time with beautiful art. So it's a good thing the Other Art Fair is back in Chicago, April 9th through the 12th. This year's theme is Nostalgia Core. So you can find a curated selection of interactive artist-led projects that celebrate those memories that make us, a little misty-eyed. Support 115 plus independent artists and meet them in person at Artifact events in Ravenswood. Tickets start at just $20. Book them now at theotherartfair.com. Today on CityCast Chicago, will there be a Jackson Park-sized data center 40 minutes from the city? What do you need to know if you're headed to C2E2 this weekend? Plus, we're reading through your latest comments and messages. It's Tuesday, March 24th. I'm Jacoby Cochran, and this is what Chicago's talking about. I've got executive producer Simone Alicea with me. Simone, how you feeling today? How was your weekend?
I'm all right, Jacoby. It was pretty good. Enjoyed that sun for the brief moment that we had it. What about you?
Yeah, last week we was talking about how to enjoy all 4 seasons in Chicago across a day or a weekend, and I feel like we went right back into that over the weekend. And so Saturday, I practiced what I preached. I went down and did the sort of Washington Park, Jackson Park loop. I didn't go to the museum, but I did stop by Bill Coffee, grabbed one of them breakfast sandwiches off their special Saturday menu, and it was damn good. We'll talk about it a little bit later, but I did get caught driving in the rain and wind on Sunday, and I felt like I was getting pushed around Lakeshore Drive left and right. It was tough out there. It was tough out there, but made it home safely. So no complaints. You and I have talked more about massive hyperscale data centers in the last 3 months, it feels, than the previous 5 years. And it makes sense. Across the country right now, a data center arms race is being fought. It's pitting state versus state, community versus community, often local government versus concerned residents who question this presumed economic value against frightening water consumption, skyrocketing electricity bills, pollution, rise of AI, and so much more, while also being told data centers will be the industry that returns jobs and property tax dollars to distressed communities. And last time we talked about it, lawmakers were considering whether or not to institute a moratorium on data centers in Illinois. But right now, individual communities are taking local votes on whether or not these projects should move into their neck of the woods. Naperville voted against one of these data centers, but Simone, just last week, city council out in Joliet, they took their own vote.
Yeah, so they have approved a massive data center. You described it in the intro as Jackson Park sized. It's actually larger than
Jackson
that.
Park plus Washington Park put together, actually, but I felt that was a little wordy.
Yeah. So it's 795 acres compared to Jackson Park's just over 500 acres, right? And, this has played out kind of the same way we have seen this play out in other communities around Chicago and in Illinois, which is, this debate comes up and there's some it's like 6.5 hours of public testimony, and a lot of which is opposed to building the site for some of the reasons you mentioned. But I think that concern, particularly around energy and electricity bills, is really, really felt right now as the costs of everything go up and as we've seen kind of rate increases over the past few years. But the council voted 8-1 to approve the construction of the data center and to annex an adjacent piece of land in order to build this data center. The one council member who opposed it is the council member whose district kind of abuts the construction area. And for supporters basically say that the benefits outweigh the concerns here. They tout 10,000 construction jobs, 700 permanent jobs, $2.1 billion in property taxes over the next 30 years. And so, it's interesting because as you said, I think this debate is coming more and more to the forefront, both as we see these local municipalities kind of debate for themselves what is the right decision, but in his budget address, Governor J.B. Pritzker announced that he was pausing tax incentives for new data centers, that is sort of part of his agenda. And at the same time, lawmakers in Springfield are debating something called the Power Act, which would it wouldn't be a moratorium, but it would basically require more upfront from companies who want to build data centers in Illinois. It would require, they would have to come with their own clean energy sources, more oversight over where they're getting their energy and water and things like that. So it would overall just be stronger, stricter regulation after a period where Illinois has really welcomed these data centers, right?
I was going to say that was one of J.B. Pritzker's first, along his like sort of 2019 burst out the gates. These tax incentives for massive data centers were amongst his, what he called his part of his economic engine plan, at the beginning of his first term. You mentioned the Power Act, which is being debated, which, to your point, would not only require them to pay their fair share in energy bills, be more transparent about water use, but also would force them not just to abide by more accountability, more transparency, but enter into community benefits agreements, not just assess them or consider them, but to develop community benefits agreements with the neighborhoods or the local municipalities that they're engaged in. And they'll be enforced by a coalition of residents, organizations, and local government officials, which I think, as we've talked about CBAs in other contexts, can be sticking points for people. And I wonder if in the final version of the Power Act, that sees the light of day.
Or if I think that assumes if the Power Act manages to pass at all, it's still in committee. I mean, we've been talking about it for a couple months. I do think there is some, again, I think a lot of communities are feeling this tension right now. And so I do think there is momentum to do something about data centers in this moment. Again, especially as we consider the sort of most proximate issue of rising energy costs. There are other long-term, potential long-term issues. And then I think, you're also hearing from communities that already have data centers where people complain about the noise and things like that, right? So there's sort of a quality of life issues attached to these as well. And it's interesting because we've also seen in recent months, while Joliet is kind of the latest to have approved, and again, this is certainly one of the biggest developments like this, places like Naperville have recently shot down data centers, Lyle, Pekin as well. And so there is kind of a mixed bag right now, I think, in Illinois. The other thing that when I saw this news about Joliet, my very first thought, Jacoby, was another thing that's happening is like Joliet, there's a water pipeline being built to Joliet right now and surrounding communities in the southwestern suburbs because they need Chicago's clean water. They need Lake Michigan water.
Joliet, Crest Hill, Channahon, Romeoville, Shorewood, and Manuka, which is also debating an Equinox 300-acre data center in the community, where the concern is the amount of water that these will use before they create what they're calling like a in-house recycled water process. The amount of water they would need initially out the gate would be a pretty sizable percentage of the water they're expecting from this pipeline, both in Joliet and in Manuka.
Yeah. And in Joliet, they're saying that, it will be a closed loop cooling system, as you say, that will recycle that water. But I just can't help but it's hard for me as just sort of an observer to be like, oh, these data centers use a lot of water. Joliet's like trekking in water from Chicago and is entered into a decades long deal in order to do so because they're worried about running out of well water. It seems. And then we're it's right. It's all of this is happening at the same time, and it's hard not to kind of draw one conclusion from the other. I think we're definitely going to hear more about this as the legislative session goes on. As I said, I do think there is some momentum to do something. But, again, I think the trick about this is there is a pretty immediate jobs creation in terms of the construction, right?
Yeah.
In a lot of especially in a lot of these suburbs, where that have lost jobs in the past decades, right?
Textiles, automotive, other commodity manufacturing has up and left. My big concern there is, to your point, the temporary and even the permanent jobs they're promising to these communities. These were once anchored by manufacturing plants, industrial hubs that could sustain tens of thousands of jobs, could be the economic driver for an entire community. And these data centers have a footprint of those former industrial homes, but would employ a fracture of those people. And the way the property taxes will flow into the local governments, they're very much like, you've got to trust we're going to put that to good use. You got to trust we're going to use that to your benefit. And I think when you put on top of the amount of manufacturing that is left, the amount of tension between the local government and residents as exhibited in these meetings, I don't think that builds a lot of long-term trust for the people who are going to have to live next to these centers. And so you're hearing once again the corporations be leveraged as a savior for these people who have heard this promise time and time again over the decades. And yet, again, 8-1 vote at this moment in time is pretty overwhelming.
In Joliet, the data center that is being spearheaded by Hillwood Investment is set to break ground either late this year or early in 2027, and it could take up to 5 years to complete.
All the headlines focusing on how it will be Illinois' largest. And then when you read into the articles, they're like, but there's another project that's currently being voted on that would immediately be larger than that at about 1,000 acres.
Yeah. Yorkville City Council just approved annexing, rezoning, and infrastructure agreements tied to Project Cardinal, 1,037-acre campus that would include 14 buildings totaling 17 million square feet. Even bigger.
Access Contemporary Music's Sound of Silent Film Festival is now in its 21st year. And I already know what you're thinking. Kobe, this is an audio medium, and that sound a bit like an oxymoron. Doesn't a silent film festival just sound like this? But here's the thing. This festival features newly composed musical scores performed live, so it's movies and a concert. These silent films were selected from more than 100 submissions to an international call, and they span comedy, drama, experimental, and beyond. Plus, they short. Each one is only about 2 to 15 minutes long. And to top it all off, the festival is at none other than the Music Box Theater, one of my favorite spots in the city and a beautiful setting for this kind of event. The Sound of Silent Film Festival is happening Wednesday, April 8th at 7:30 p.m. Tickets are available at acmusic.org.
Hi, CityCast listeners. This is David Plotz. I'm the CEO of CityCast, but I also have another job. I'm one of the hosts of the Political Gabfest, Slate's politics podcast. Every week, I get on mic with my co-hosts Emily Bazelon and John Dickerson, and we talk about politics and a lot more about other things that we care about. The Gabfest has been going for more than 20 years because the three of us love talking to each other, and we have an amazing community of listeners. If you like the open-hearted, curious way CityCast approaches cities, I think you'll like the Political Gabfest too. Stream it on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast.
Small, over the last couple of weeks, we've had some people leave us some comments on Spotify, reach out to us via text, via email. What are they talking about? What they got to say?
Yeah, let's start with the most recent ones here because yesterday we had a conversation with our contributor Lee Jean Greco about breakfast sandwiches and the phrase loose eggs became something of a refrain. Lee making a point that she is pro, I guess, loose scrambled eggs. Like imagine scrambling an egg in a pan and then putting that in a sandwich as opposed to like, a shaped patty of some kind of eggs. And you know, she got a little validation in the text here. Taliba texted us and said, "I'm with Lee John Greco. No fake eggs. The kind that comes with a child's kitchen set. Real eggs only, scrambled or fried." So, you know,
I agree with that. Like, we definitely was not in support of fake patties. We was more in favor of shaped eggs. And again, I was down with scramble a little hard, but like scramble loose and wet. Like, that is where I was sort of drawing the line. I just had Bill Coffee and Books Saturday morning early bird breakfast sandwich, toasted sourdough, hash browns, and then there was a squared, what felt like a squared flipped egg. And it was
like a
great.
folded egg.
Yeah, it held up. It was amazing. It covered the entire piece of toast. I just wouldn't have wanted the hash browns, the shredded hash browns, and scrambled eggs all together, like falling all in my wrapper or on the table or something like that. And so I feel you. We definitely with the real eggs, but I don't mind it being shaped into a little patty.
Yeah, I that's my thing too. I'm all about the mess. Viral and Rogers Park also texted us saying, "Not trying to defend Lee out here with the loose eggs. Parenthesis, I love a good egg patty. Completely disagree, they're rubbery. I will say though, as someone born and raised outside NYC, the classic bacon, egg, and cheese, one word, does have either a fried egg or loose scrambled eggs. So she's onto something." I don't know that we need to be comparing ourselves to New York. Although their breakfast sandwich culture, they might have us on that. I don't know, Jacoby.
I think they might have us on their obsession with breakfast sandwiches. The taste of the breakfast sandwich.
The availability, I think, is my
for
point.
sure.
Yes.
Yeah, that goes without saying, right?
But yeah, I don't know that I'm married to the style per se of a breakfast sandwich or the taste thereof. But I am jealous of the availability of their breakfast sandwiches.
Yes.
For sure.
All right. So people didn't reach out to us just to talk about their egg preferences, which again, I understand where people is coming from, but it also, nobody was in defense of loose, runny, little bit of wet. And again, I think, because I also am not a fan of a runny egg, like with some yolk. Like, that's not my go-to. I prefer you, even if you lay it sort of sunny side and just fry it all the way through, I'm with that. I don't really want it running.
No,
so I wonder how people feel on that versus scrambled egg versus a sort of fried soft with a runny yolk.
When I make a breakfast sandwich at home, it's super soft. It's super soft and runny, and then I dip, but I have a plate and I dip my bread in the egg that has run through. But I do not like it and I wouldn't mind it at a restaurant that I'm sitting down at. But if I'm at a restaurant sitting down, I'm probably
takeaway.
Not on takeaway.
Anytime somebody offered that on the menu, I say fry that thing all the way through. I don't like
a dry yolk. I really hate a dry yolk. It just, no, that's not my thing.
That. I'm finna go make a bacon breakfast sandwich right after we get off this call. So
Good for you.
I hear that. All right. What else we talked about last week? Oh, doing all four, as many Chicago seasons in a day or a weekend as possible. Like I said up top, that was me outside from Homewood, playing some D&D, to moving through Jackson Park, Washington Park, and Hyde Park with my brother. Got out, got a little walk in. How did they respond to our conversation?
Yeah, so we got a comment from Dana on Spotify who said, "I think Simone is just cold-blooded like me. I'd rather carry 10 coats than be cold. And now I have a daughter, so I'm carrying her gloves and hats. Also, I am pro umbrella, especially if you have it all matchy-matchy to your other seasonal gear." And because I said in that show that I hate being cold. I would rather carry my coat and carry all my stuff, carry a big bag, than be cold. Although ironically, I think because I had said that on the podcast, I ran into the exact opposite problem on Saturday. Because when I left my apartment, it was like 45 degrees or whatever. And so I had a sweater and then over the sweater, I had kind of a thin-ish, but still like, kind of wool lit kind of coat, right? And it was perfect. I go and I went out for breakfast. I sit down, I have breakfast. I come out. And when I come out, it's already like 60 degrees and sunny and the sun is blaring down and I'm still walking somewhere. And of course I start sweating because I am now way too warm. So I take off the coat and I tie it around, like, right. It's the exact, you can't win. You really can't win. Again, I would still prefer that experience than, you know, being underdressed and being caught in the cold, but still no one's happy.
I'd rather be a little cold. I'd rather be just a little cold than a little uncomfortably hot.
No. The other thing about the umbrella that I like, you know, if I had an umbrella hack is like, I think Chicagoans, I have found, take it really personally when it's gray outside. They really don't like it. It really puts them in a bad mood in a way that is deeply funny to me as someone who's from the Pacific Northwest and like is used to 9 months of no sun. Yeah, it's just, this just is what it is. But what I really like is I really like having a really bright and colorful umbrella because it is just, it's that thing that kind of brings you a little joy when you go outside into the rain or into the gray and you look up. And I used to have one that was like a, you know, it was a print of a Monet painting that was like green and blue. It was gorgeous. I used to have one that was actually black on top, but underneath it was a print of a blue sky. So like you look up and it's a blue sky, not the gray sky. Right now I have one that's this like cool red and purple pattern. Like, you know, I think that's another way you can, for less for keeping yourself dry, but more just getting through a gray day.
All of the other people, children, even the pets in my life are better dressed for the weather than I am more times than not. Then the last thing, we recently posted your very first experience with Portillo's, which for the rest of us was a huge surprise. You've been here damn near mostly a decade and ain't never stopped by for a chocolate cake shake or Italian beef, a burger, a hot dog, jumbo, Polish or something. But you finally went there, which some people commented on Instagram and didn't find it as funny as us that you was there for the first time.
No, they didn't think it was as cute as I thought it was, which is fine. Like, you know, that's
Portillo's
what the
loved it.
Portillo's did love it. So Portillo's themselves commented because I think it was Jacoby. I think you were describing Michelle. And as we know, our producer, Michelle Navarro, loves an Italian beef. And I think you described her as an Italian beef evangelist. Yep. And so Portillo's commented, Italian beef evangelism. The Pope would be so proud. I know we are. Indeed. And so, you know, I think that was
if y'all
fun.
Trying to throw us some sponsorships, come back through. Y'all trying to advertise with us. Come on through. Don't just pop up in the comments. Come spend some bread with us. We be spending bread with y'all. Simone said she going back.
Come on. I'd like to go back. I had a great time. And then there were people who were recommending some other places. I thought it was funny, the person who recommended Bona Beef, because to me, there isn't like, there were some people who clearly were sort of like, oh, like Portillo's is basic, or like this is a chain, and you're
feels
like
Bona is the Potbellies to Portillo's Subway.
Exactly. Like there's I'm like, okay, sure. And then Satchel's, which I don't know anything about. I don't know what Satchel's is.
No, I ain't never been there either. Again, I don't really mess with the Italian beef, but I have tried the Johnny's one. Pretty fast. Again, that ain't my order at Portillo's. And then for the people who hate and saying like, oh, you could have went somewhere else, why go there? You know, I agree with the people who say it ain't dipped like you're going to get it dipped somewhere else. Let's be real. That's like, you know,
I think that's fair. It was very, it was still pretty intact. I liked it personally. I liked that it wasn't totally falling apart, which maybe is sacrilegious when we talked about a dipped Italian beef. But hey, I like what I like, man.
And then somebody said, nope, that's like saying you never like burgers until you try Burger King, which again, I hear what people saying, but I don't know. As a kid who just grew up most of the time, my mama was cooking in the crib. We was not getting a lot of fast food. Anytime we went to, again, Giordano's, Burger King, Portillo's, McDonald's, them was celebrations, them was holidays. And so I get now that my palate has aged and I've tried a whole bunch of burgers from a bunch of places, a bunch of Italian beefs, or I didn't try the sweet steak sandwich at a whole bunch of places across the city. I get it, but I don't know. I don't hate on people for having love for the local chain or even some fast food joint. It's a lot of nostalgia connected to that.
I think too, it's interesting, Jacoby, because I would say I'm probably most frequently the food snob on this show. I think of the two of us certainly, and of the team. And so you know,
you're the food snob, and I'm usually the bougie one.
Yeah, like I do tend, like the reason I hadn't gone to Portillo's was very much because I was like, oh, what's the point? It's just fast food. But like there's a couple things that make Portillo's different that I think kind of make it worth it, and why we chose to do the video is, number one, it's a homegrown, it is one of our homegrown chains, right? Like, that has this storied history, decades and decades, obviously now owned by, private equity, but up to before 2014, it was very much a local chain with local roots and that had expanded, and, serving local food, the Italian beef, of course, being a very Chicago thing. So I do think that makes it different from Burger King, which,
100%.
is not from here. It's not Chicago. You know what I mean? And I think the other thing, that I didn't really get as a transplant to Chicago is, because I had assumed it was just kind of like every other fast food joint, I assumed that the experience of going there was going to be like going to a Burger King where you have this terrible fluorescent lighting and it's really there to serve the drive-through, and like, it's not there to like have a good time or whatever. You're there to like get there and scarf some food down your face and get out. And that wasn't my experience at all. Chicago in general, I think, has a lot more respect for fast food than some other cities, and I think you also see that in, that's why we did a series on Vienna beef, right? And like, you could talk about Red Hot Ranch and like the sort of devotion people have to their specific hot dog stand or whatever. Like, we just, Chicago is a city where we have both things. We've got the Michelin stars, and you've got the James Beard Awards, and you've got this like high-end fusion that is like crazy, and chefs doing things that have never been done before. But then also you've got people who are like, no, this is the type of hot dog that I'm supposed to have. This is what my Italian beef is supposed to look like. And this is what dipped actually means. And my ratio of peppers to like that, it's the same, it all exists in the same place.
And we hyper specific with our preferences, sweet peppers versus hot peppers. Like, you want to fry hard with salt and pepper or lemon pepper? How much mild sauce you want on the fries? And do y'all even have mild sauce? What are y'all serving in there?
And and is it mild sauce really? Like, what?
Like, what exactly is you putting on here? And so, yeah, I appreciate the people had opinions, had thoughts, and made them heard in our comments. And as always, we want to hear from y'all. 773-780-0246. Your name, your neighborhood, your opinions. Find us on social media. Jump into the DMs, into our comment section, and you may hear your ideas on the podcast. C2E2 is back in Chicago this weekend, celebrating 16 years. The Comic Book and Entertainment Expo set a record last year with 100,000 plus attendees across their 3 days. And funny enough, the first and only time I have ever been was with you back in 2021 during the pandemic. And from what I understand, Simone, you are headed back this weekend.
I will. I'm going to be there because here's a weird fact about me. My boyfriend and I have started a gaming company. He's written a few games. I've been editing them. These are tabletop games, and we're going to be exhibiting them at C2E2 on Friday and Saturday. We're going to be in a section called Side Quest, which is on the convention floor. So you can see a big sign called Side Quest, where you can see a bunch of games. There's also that's also a spot where you can like play video games. There's going to be an indie game showcase, which is what we're a part of. So you can check out some other indie game creators. A lot of them are local to Chicago because, they were here, right? And so that is what I am going to be doing and what I am really excited for. So if there's anyone listening who is already planning to go to C2E2, drop by and, come say hi.
Outside of running your table, are there any things you're excited to see, exhibits you're excited to interact with, people you want to maybe even just get a little, maybe if not an autograph, walk past their table, take a little picture?
I don't know if I want to. Those lines get so crazy. And if that's your thing, like, go for it. I think like in my dreamy dreams, I just want to catch a glimpse of Elizabeth Olsen. Like if I could just be in her orbit for a second, like that would be enough for me. She's going to be there. She's one of the headliners in terms of celebrities. I think the thing that I am really excited for.
Currently plays Wanda in the MCU.
Yes. But also is just kind of just great actress, even outside of the sort of nerdy fandoms that bring her to C2E2. I think with these cons, this is, now I've done a few of these at this point, and I think a thing that I always really enjoy and that you can get a lot out of is going to Artist Alley, which is it's exactly what it sounds like. It's a bunch of artists showing off their art. I think what I love about Artist Alley anywhere, like I said, at any of these cons, is like you can talk one-on-one with artists about their work and kind of how it gets to, how it comes to be, but also they are selling prints, stickers, magnets, dice, like any kind of witch thing. It's often like very cool. It's very colorful. And it's just like a great place to sort of connect. And like, often you can hire them for commissions. And it's, I don't know, I feel like it's a place that's often underrated because it's a bit more, I think people tend to see it kind of more as like if you need an artist for something, it's kind of more of a business like networking element. But I think it's also, I don't know, if you like art, go see it. And it's often like a little less crowded than, some of the other elements too. There's also going to be a cool thing. If you go to C2E2's website, they have sort of some recommendations for stuff, like depending on what you like. And one of the things they have is if you are trying to support local Chicagoland stuff. So like, you can go hang out with Oak Lawn High School's anime club. I think DePaul is also going to have a booth, right? They actually just ran their own con, kind of a mini con themselves, last month. You can you can find some like local brands that are selling stuff if you're into cosplay. I think Chicago Costumes is going to be around. They're, if they're big in the cosplay world. So yeah, you can also, even though obviously C2E2, huge event, lots of different, that floor is nuts. That at McCormick Place, like it's insane, but you can still find, some local stuff, including Jacoby, the Chicago area Lego users group.
Come on.
Shylug. So there you go.
Maybe I need to get out into some Lego community building. I've been siloed off just doing it on my own. Maybe I need to be pursuing broader.
I've seen this. Yeah, I've seen that at Fan Expo out in Rosemont. The Lego Club was out and like they had some cool stuff, Jacoby, and they were just out there building. So
I was gonna say Darius just recently joined a local D&D group playing on Wednesdays out in Homewood, and how much joy I can see he's getting from not only trying to teach us the hobby, but participating with people who are years experienced. It's clearly giving him so much more than he ever imagined. But I was looking at some of the people who are going to be there, including WWE royalty, CM Punk and AJ Lee. One of my favorite actors, Dwayne Hill from West Wing, Psych, the Wonder Years reboot. Comic artist Afua Richardson, who did some of the most recent Black Panther comic covers, the World of Wakanda covers, and then headliner alongside Elizabeth Olsen is current Daredevil Charlie Cox. And so do you got any last minute tips for any first timers, people who might be cosplaying for the first time, people who are just attending the convention for the first time, outside of some of those amazing suggestions you just gave?
Yeah, I think pace yourself. It's big, it's crowded. There are lots of maps and stuff available, and there are spaces that are sort of designated as relaxation lounge spaces. But like, I think the biggest thing is kind of like know where you're going to go to sit down and have a quiet place, because it can be really, really overwhelming. I think when it comes to cosplay, normal rules of cosplay apply. Ask people before you take pictures of them. Don't touch people without their permission. Yep. And of course, like, generally the hope is that these are supportive spaces for things like that. And so if you are trying something new for the first time, be brave. Don't be afraid. And like, probably I'm going to compliment you because I can't cosplay. I can't build anything. So I'll be excited to see it regardless.
I want to give a huge thank you to our executive producer, Simone Alicea. As always, appreciate you making time.
Hey, thanks, Jacoby.
Before we get out of here, make sure you bookmark our website, chicago.citycast.fm. There you're going to find our events calendar. You can subscribe to our daily newsletter. And if you love the work that we're doing, please consider becoming a CityCast Chicago neighbor. For $10 a month, you're going to get access to ad-free listening, neighbors-only events. And again, you're going to get to show some love to us over here. Again, that's membership.citycast.fm. Of course, we can't get out of here without some good news. If you are someone or know a young person in your life who is interested in music, then tell them about the event taking place at Legner Regional Library next Tuesday, featuring Bella Boss and TJ Lavish of Ladylike Studios. They're going to have a hands-on workshop talking about everything from gaining recognition as an artist, how to navigate studio, how to network with folks. Again, that's going to be next Tuesday at the Legner Regional Library from 4 to 5. I'm going to drop a link in our show notes. As always, we appreciate you for listening and reading. We're going to be back bright and early tomorrow. We'll talk to you then. Peace.